Good afternoon, my name is Andrew Gomez, and today I'm going to be going through my CS643 Cloud Computing Project 1, where we had to create 2 EC2 instances and 1 SQS instance in order to handle an image recognition pipeline, where we identified the image had a car in it, put it in the SQS pipeline, and then identified whether those images with cars had text in them, and then output the text to an output file. So as you can see here, we have EC2 instance A, car recognition, and we have EC2 instance B, text recognition. Both these had to be configured to be able to run the Java programs. Here is my SQS queue. It's project 1 queue. This is a standard queue, and as you can see, some data down here from when testing was going on. And then here we have our SQS instance, our S3 instance that the entire class is using. Okay, so in terms of connecting to the instances, I used PuTTY, and you connected via their public IPv4 in addresses. So here we have EC2 instance A, and down here we have EC2 instance B. So I used Maven to configure both the machines to handle the dependencies and plugins needed. As you can see, we're inside of the Maven project files, and we had to configure the pommel.xml. Okay, so first, let's look at the code. So here's the code for EC2 instance A. So this machine should pull the image from S3, send it to recognition, determine whether it has a car in it with confidence greater than 80%, and if so, put it in the SQS queue. So we're creating all our client builders here. Then we're going to loop through all 10 images. We know the names are just 1 through 10, so it's pretty simple to iterate through all the names. So creating an image, an S3 object, and then an image from each of those, and then putting it into a function I created called car recognition, which takes in the client and the image, and it determines whether or not this image has a confidence greater than 80%. If it does have a confidence greater than 80%, it returns true. Then we're going to print out to the screen the name of the image, and that it's a car, and that's going to be pushed into the queue. So the person running it here locally knows what's going on. And then we're also going to push it onto the SQS queue using another function I created. And then after we've gone through all 10 images, we're going to push -1 into the SQS queue to signal that nothing else will be coming. So instance B knows it's ready to terminate. This is the car recognition function I made. So basically it just creates a label request and figures out whether this has a car label and whether that has a confidence of greater than 80%. If it does have that, then we're going to return true, and it knows to push it to the SQS queue. In terms of pushing to the SQS queue, this function handles that by just creating a simple SQS message request and putting the object's index, or the image index, into the body of the message. Okay, so next let's look at machine 2. So as we know, machine 2 is supposed to look at the queue, take all the images out of the queue, process them, and if they have text in them, output that text to an output file. So as you can see here, it's got a pretty similar setup to instance A, where we're creating the clients first, but then when we get down here, this is where it changes, right? We have a constant while loop going where we're trying to pull one message out of the queue. When pulling a message out of the queue, if it's empty, that either means we're in one of two cases, that we've pulled all the messages out of the queue and we're ready to terminate. So if we have -1, we can just terminate. Or if the messages are empty and we haven't received -1 yet, this likely means that instance B started before instance A was able to push any messages onto the queue. So we handle both those cases here by analyzing whether we have received -1 or not. Okay, so now that we're down here, we're actually looking at the body of the message if it wasn't blank. So this means that we either received -1, so in that case just set stop signal to true and continue, or that there's something else in the body, likely the index of an actual image. So here we're doing sort of a similar thing we did in instance A, where we're creating the image object using S3, and then we're feeding the string, or the image and the recognition client into a function I created. This text recognition function basically does a label request again, or text request this time, and determines what the text is on the image and outputs a string. And then that string is recorded here in image text, and then we basically just look at that string. If it's empty, we know that image didn't have any text, and we'll just tell the user there was no text. And then if there was text, we're going to print that text out to the screen so the person here, once again, knows what's going on and doesn't have to look at any of the Amazon components. And then it also outputs it to an output file. And then after doing that, it deletes the message from the queue. If we don't delete the message from the queue, we'll constantly be pulling it back out. So here's that text recognition function I made, sort of similar to the image recognition function, but this time we're using a text request and a text response in order to look at and see what text we've received. And we're just creating one big string that we return to the user. Okay, so now that we've gone through the code for both sides of the project here, let's compile it and run it. So since we're in Maven, we're going to do mvn clean package, which just basically recompiles the whole thing. As you can see here, it's going through. We haven't run into any build errors. It's running through all the tests, and instance B also just finished. Awesome. Okay, so first we'll do a traditional instance A starts first, and then we'll do instance B starts first after that. Let me just check to make sure the output file doesn't exist. Yep, there's no output file here, but we will see one after running it. Okay, so we're gonna run instance A first, and then we're gonna run instance B. Okay, as we can see, instance A is already going. It's pushing the images onto the queue, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all pushed onto the queue. And these are the images with actual cars. We don't say anything about the images that weren't pushed into the queue. So all of these images will then be in our SQS queue, and this pulls them out as it sees them. And since we're using a standard queue, there's no guarantee that they're going to come all in the same exact order. So as you can see here, it came in the order 2, 1, 3, 5, 6, 4, 7. And here we're also printing out, right, whether or not the image has text and what that text was, if it does. Okay, now we should see that there is an output file. So let's print out the output file. Yep, and as we can see here, image 1, 3, 4, and 7 all had text, and that's the same up here. 1, 3, 4, and 7 all had text. And to print it out, their index and what text they contained. Okay, so now let's remove this output file, and let's rerun this, but we're going to run it in the opposite order. So instance B is going to start first before instance A. So as you can see, instance B has started first, then we're going to start instance A, and we'll notice as soon as instance A starts sending stuff onto the queue, instance B is ready to pop them. So my code works both ways. Either machine can start first, and we won't run into any issues. You will notice that instance B does hang here for a second. This is just a result of instance B checking the queue to make sure there's no extra messages. So it's going to wait the full 20-ish seconds here to make sure that no extra messages are sent at the very end, or if there's any delays. This would only really come into the case if there were massive slowdowns on Amazon's side or something like that, which we don't run into in this project, but if there's a safety net. Okay, so now let's look. We see the output file has been recreated, and we're going to print it out, and we notice that it's all good. So that has been my project. We've seen both EC2 instances running. You've seen my setup on the Amazon side, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and you have a better idea of how I set up my project. Thank you.